looked brand new when I finished. Then I decided to plant 6 lavender bushes along our front walkway, Sarah's favorite flower, and a welcome home surprise she'd see the moment she pulled into our driveway. I was on my knees digging the last hole for the final lavender plant when I heard the sharp click of high heels on pavement. Eleanor was marching across her lawn toward me, her face set in that particular expression of righteous anger she'd perfected over years of HOA enforcement. She carried her ever-present clipboard and what looked like a professional camera. Refuse. Stop what you're doing right now. Her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been told no. You are in violation of at least 3 neighborhood ordinances. I looked up from my gardening, genuinely confused. Good afternoon, Eleanor. I'm just planting some flowers on the house. She passed close to the pressure washer and the innocent lavender plants like she was documenting the crime scene. Noise violations during weekend quiet hours, unauthorized landscaping modifications, and excessive water usage during municipal restrictions. They rattled off making notes on her clipboard between photos. The rules clearly state that any landscaping changes require prior approval from the Architectural Review Committee. I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. Eleanor, it's 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and I'm planting flowers on my own property. I wasn't aware that beautifying my home required it. Her smile was ice cold when she couldn't quantify the photo. Ignorance of the rules isn't an excuse, Leo. You'll be hearing from the association very soon. She turned on her heel and marched back to her house, leaving me standing there with dirt under my fingernails and a growing sense of unease. Something about her demeanor told me this wasn't over. It was just beginning. Exactly 1 hour later, my phone chimed with an email notification. The subject line read, Official Violation Notice. Immediate payment required. $400. $400 for planting flowers and cleaning my own driveway. The email was professionally formatted, complete with time-stamped photos and references to specific HOA bylaws I'd apparently violated. But something nagged at me as I read through the details. The timestamp on the notification was 6 days before I even started my weekend projects. I stared at my computer screen, reading the date over and over again. September 15th. Today was September 21st. Eleanor had backdated this penalty, creating evidence of violations that hadn't even occurred yet. She'd planned this trap before I'd even picked up the pressure washer. This wasn't about neighborhood standards or weak enforcement. This was about power and control. Eleanor Morrison had just declared war on me, and she'd fired the first shot with a lie. Sitting in my home office surrounded by design projects and client deadlines, I felt some shit inside me. I'd spent 15 years building my freelance career with clients and impossible deadlines. I'd learned patience, diplomacy, and how to handle difficult people. But Eleanor had just crossed a line I didn't even know existed. She didn't want compliance with the rules. She wanted complete submission to her authority. If Eleanor could fake the dates on this penalty, what else was she planning that I didn't know about type trapped? If you've ever dealt with someone who plays dirty like this, I spent that entire night researching our HOA bylaws, complaint procedures, and enforcement history, like I was preparing for a final exam. What I discovered was both enlightening and infuriating. Eleanor Morrison had turned selective enforcement into a fine art targeting specific residents while ignoring identical violations committed by her allies.
Did you know that the water you've been drinking for years could be making you sick?
Allies. Mrs. Henderson, 2 floors down, had been running an unlicensed daycare for 6 months without a single complaint, while the young couple across the street had been fined 3 times for leaving their garbage cans visible from the street for more than 4 hours after pickup. I spent hours documenting Eleanor's pattern of harassment disguised as legitimate governance. Photo evidence showed her friends parking RVs in their driveways for weeks at a time. Clear violation according to Section 4.3 of our community guidelines. While she'd fined the Martinez family $50 for leaving their boat trailer parked for a single weekend. The more I dug, the clearer it became that Eleanor didn't enforce rules. She weaponized them against anyone who threatened her absolute authority over our little suburban kingdom. Armed with evidence and fueled by righteous anger, I crafted what I considered a masterpiece of professional passive aggression. I emailed all 47 neighborhood residents had the subject line, Community Question Our Rules Apply Fairly. I presented my research with the clinical precision of a legal brief, including side-by-side photo comparisons showing identical violations treated My phone started ringing with inconsistent neighbors I'd barely spoken to before were calling to share their own Eleanor horror stories. The retired teacher next door told me about being fined for having her newspaper delivered to her front door instead of the designated delivery area. The young father 3 houses down had been cited for children's toys being visible in his backyard from a second-story window. Eleanor's rage touched every household in her neighborhood. Never organized evidence before. Within 6 hours, my email had been forwarded to local community groups and shared across our township's online forums. Eleanor's carefully constructed image as a fair and impartial neighborhood guardian crumbled under the weight of documented evidence. Phone calls buzzed between houses as neighbors shared stories they'd kept quiet for years, afraid of being Eleanor's next target. Fear and intimidation suddenly found herself exposed as a small communicator drunk with the power of a voluntary position. The next day, the message was a masterclass in non-apology, apologizing for
he just says touch grass, such a
procedural error and misunderstanding of documentation protocol. She canceled my $400 fine with all the grace of someone swallowing broken glass. But her follow-up email sent privately to my personal address contained just 3 words that made my blood run cold. You won today. Those 3 words carried more menace than any shouted threat could have achieved. Eleanor Morrison wasn't the type of person who accepted defeat gracefully. This wasn't over. It was escalation. I just humiliated her and the entire community she controlled for years. Wounded animals are always the most dangerous. For the next week, Eleanor made herself deliberately intimidating. Every evening around 6 o'clock, she'd appear on the sidewalk outside my house phone pressed to her ear, taking detailed notes while pointing at my property and measuring distances with a contractor's tape measure. She wasn't trying to hide her surveillance. She wanted to know I was being watched and cataloged, prepared for something bigger than a simple HOA violation. The expensive black sedan with government license plates appeared on a Tuesday morning. I was working in my home office when moving outside caught my attention. The car was parked directly in front of Eleanor's house, and a well-dressed young man in an expensive suit was embracing her on her front porch. Their body language suggested familiarity. This wasn't a casual acquaintance or business associate. License plate bright red, exceeding and something about the way the gesture toward my house during their conversation. My stomach dropped. The man looked to me in his early 30s, with a confident bearing of someone accustomed to
so much shit on my fucking screen, I can't see.
That particular combination of self-importance and bureaucratic power that comes from having actual influence on people's lives. Repeatedly in my direction while they spoke. Their conversation lasted for 20 minutes. When it ended, Eleanor's smile held the cold satisfaction. Just even done. After the government car pulled away, Eleanor stood on the porch for several more minutes, staring directly at my house with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger or frustration. It was the look of someone who knew exactly what was coming next and was savoring the anticipation. She waved at me when she noticed me watching from my window, a gesture so friendly and normal that it felt like a threat. That night, I found myself checking our home security system twice before bed. Sarah had installed it before leaving for her assignment, joking that I needed protection from suburban dangers like overzealous salespeople and aggressive HOA residents. At the time, I'd laughed at that paranoia. Now I was grateful for the professional suspicions about the world. I tried calling Sarah to tell her about Eleanor's escalating behavior, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Her assignments often required communication blackouts, and I didn't want to worry her with neighborhood drama when she was dealing with actual dangerous criminals. I began the first round successfully. I demanded whatever else was planned next. What was this mystery? Why did he comment if you video should have seen this coming? Sarah came home on a Thursday evening.
Hold on! Oh, fuck this shit!
Her posture was more alert, her eyes constantly